She would be crowned in flames, her iron hoofbeats sending tremors through the heart of an empire. But for now, she is only the most beloved princess of the steppe, blissfully unaware of the bloody betrayal that will soon shatter her destiny. The story takes place in the 6th century BC. The powerful Persian Empire has conquered nearly half the world, but it is powerless against the vast steppes to the north. This is the domain of the Saka tribes, a confederation of fierce nomadic warriors. Among them, the Massagetes stand as the most formidable. Their chieftain, Spargap, is a legendary lord of the steppe. At this moment, he leads his men on a hunt. His masterful archery earns the admiration of his warriors. As he skillfully dresses the kill, he is certain the omens in its entrails foretell the birth of a son. Yet his joy is short-lived. A warning from his men snaps him to attention. They have ventured too deep into the territory of Akabat. Before the words fade, a hostile cavalry emerges from the horizon. These are the riders of Akabat, the true masters of this land. The law of the steppe is simple and brutal. Trespassers pay in blood. A fierce skirmish erupts. Warriors from both tribes locked in a desperate struggle across the snow-covered plains. When the battle ends, the field is littered with the fallen. Spargap approached a gravely wounded soldier. With his last remaining strength, the loyal warrior pleaded with his leader to end his suffering. Grieved, Spargap draws his dagger and grants his loyal man a warrior's final dignity. Just then, he discovered a signal coming from a distance. His wife is in labor. Spargap's heart races as he spurs his horse toward camp. Inside the tent, his wife, Bopai, was experiencing a life-or-death struggle. The difficult labor left her in excruciating pain, and her life was slipping away. The tribe's shaman prays by the fire, pleading for the safety of mother and child. By the time Spargap arrives, breathless and dust-covered, the child has been born. But his wife, weak and trembling, cradles the infant with a look of sorrow. It is a girl, not the heir he had longed for. With her last ounce of strength, she tells her husband this is all she can give him. She left a ring to her daughter and named her Tomiris. Spargap's hope is dashed, but there is no time for grief, because his wife has left him forever. Cradling his newborn daughter in his arms, the hardened warrior of the steppe shed tears of grief for the first time. Years later, Spargap remarried, but he poured all his paternal love into his only child, Tomiris. He did not raise her as a fragile girl, but molded her into a brave and resilient warrior from a young age. From horseback riding and archery to hand-to-hand combat, Spargap taught her everything he knew. Tomiris displayed an astonishing aptitude, inheriting not only her father's ferocity, but also a wisdom beyond her years. One day, Tomiris innocently asked her father if she would ever see her mother again. Spargap told her that while death is inevitable, the soul lives on forever. He solemnly placed her mother's ring, the symbol of their bloodline, into her small hands. Yet beneath the calm surface, unrest stirred. Not everyone in the tribe approved of Spargap's leadership. Two chieftains, Kavaz and Kurtun, secretly resented his frequent raids on Khwarezmian caravans. Behind his back, they conspired with the Khwarezmians, and Palak saw through their ambition. He began to incite them to overthrow Spargap, promising to support them as the new leaders of the tribe. Once the seed of desire was planted, it grew wild. At a tribal gathering, Kavaz and Kurtun pretended to advise Spargap to make peace with the Khwarezmians. In their eyes, trading furs for salt and cloth was far wiser than risking their lives in raids. But Spargap scoffed at the idea. To him, anything worth having should be taken by force. When one of them even began to speak on behalf of the Khwarezmians, Spargap's fury erupted. He warned them that if they spoke another word, their heads would be sent to the enemy. Late at night, Tomyris woke from a nightmare and approached her father, sharing her fears. Spargap was still trying to comfort his daughter when he suddenly became aware of the unusual silence outside. His instincts screamed danger. He roared for his daughter to flee as enemies stormed in. Kavaz and Kurtun led their men and launched this despicable raid under the cover of darkness. Spargap fought fiercely, but he was outnumbered. One by one, his men fell, and he was surrounded. Tomyris watched in horror as her father was struck down, her screams tearing through the night. The traitor Kavaz revealed his true face, plunging a dagger into Spargap's body. Loyal warriors barely managed to rescue Tomyris, escaping with her and a handful of survivors into the endless night. In a single night, her home was destroyed, her family slaughtered. Tomyris, once the beloved princess of the steppe, was now a homeless fugitive. The immense grief and hatred planted the seed of vengeance deep within her heart. The survivors debated their next move. They didn't know how many chieftains had been involved in the conspiracy. The steppe was vast, but there was no place left for them. Their only refuge was a cursed land, the one place where they might be safe. Desperate, they set out on an uncertain path of exile, eventually reaching a forest where they decided to settle temporarily. As time passed, the traitors' pursuit gradually faded, and the people of the steppe seemed to forget the bloody massacre. But the memory of her father's death festered in Tomyris like a poisoned thorn, hardening her heart to stone. The thought of revenge coiled around her, sustaining her in the harsh wilderness. Under the guidance of her loyal mentor, she no longer just practiced combat skills. She learned to think like a hunter. She had to learn patience, observation, and how to wait for the perfect moment to strike. She hunted with her companions, honed her survival skills, and gathered strength for the day of reckoning. Yet the endless hiding wore on her. The fire of vengeance burned brighter in her chest.
Sana ayora, bınız muntağızul turkamu. Mana kavaz vellerir tına.
One day, she climbed a mountain alone, clutching the ring her mother had left her. Her father's words echoed in her ears, mingling with her longing for her family and her hatred for her enemies, tormenting her. In a daze, she seemed to see the terrifying death bear from her childhood nightmares, but she did not flinch. Her eyes burned with defiance against fate. The vision faded and she awoke from her trance, splashing her face with icy stream water to clear her mind. But when she returned to camp, she found her people slaughtered. Enraged, Tomyris mounted her horse to chase the enemy. Hiding behind a hill, she watched as the surviving members of her tribe were led away. She drew her bow and attacked, killing all the enemies, but her people were already dead. Alone, she rode through the wilderness, her strength nearly spent. Just when Tomyris was on the verge of despair, he met a group of extraordinary female warriors. These were the Savarat warrior women, fierce and independent, who roamed the steppe. Sardana recognized that Tomyris was not a civilian. So she ordered the seriously injured Tomyris to be taken back to the camp for treatment. Under the care of the priestess, Tomyris was pulled back from the edge of death. In her unconsciousness, the scene of her father's murder replayed over and over, searing itself deeper into her soul. When she finally awoke, she found herself in a completely unfamiliar place. She walked out of the tent and saw this tribe composed entirely of women, whose lifestyle was full of strength and wildness. Sardana approached her and introduced herself. Here, a female warrior could only choose a worthy husband after collecting 3 enemy skulls in battle. Before the tribal leader, Tomyris revealed her true identity and the horrors she had endured. To her surprise, the leader was an old acquaintance of her father, Spargap. Out of respect for their past bond, they decided to take her in and protect her. When asked where the people who hurt her were, Tomyris calmly said that she had killed all the enemies. Tomyris officially joined the Savarat tribe and quickly adapted to their way of life. She trained alongside the female warriors, honing her combat skills. During a wrestling match, she faced off against one of the tribe's fiercest fighters, her determined gaze and unyielding spirit earning the cheers of the crowd. That night, enemies attacked. The Savarats fought back fiercely, and Tomyris stood among them, her bravery and skill on full display. After the battle, the tribe held a celebration, formally accepting her as one of their own. A deep bond of sisterhood formed between Tomyris and Sardana. When Sardana asked about her plans, Tomyris looked at the ring in her hand, and the flames of vengeance burned anew. Soon, the tribe planned a raid on a Khwarezmian village. Tomyris demonstrated her tactical brilliance, proposing a two-pronged attack to minimize bloodshed while maximizing victory. Sardana was impressed by this plan and readily adopted it. The raid went smoothly, and the village fell with ease. While looting, a brave little boy rushed to Tomyris. The woman explained that the boy was merely their servant. She allowed Tomyris to do as he pleased with the boy, only asking her to spare her life. The contrast between the boy's courage and the woman's coldness struck Tomyris deeply. She sheathed her blade and decided to take the boy, Tomyris, back to the tribe. Tomyris adopted Tomyris as her own. During a tribal ceremony, the Savarat leader lifted her son high, declaring him her heir. Watching the warm scene, Tomyris spotted Kavaz and Kurtun in the distance. She told Sardana that her enemies were now the leaders of the Masajte. The memory of her people's slaughter flashed before her eyes, and she vowed to reclaim everything that was stolen from her. At a wrestling match, a young man named Argan stood out. He was the son of the Dahai tribal leader. Tomyris' archery skills drew cheers and caught Argan's attention. He approached her, introducing himself, but Tomyris responded with cold indifference, her eyes filled with haughty detachment. Meanwhile, inside the tent, a negotiation that would shape the future of the steppe was underway. Kavaz, the traitor, arrived on behalf of the Masajte, claiming to celebrate but actually pressuring the Savarat leader. He accused the Savarmats of crossing the border and attacking Khwarezmian villages. He said the Khwarezmians were now his allies. Kavaz arrogantly demanded that the Savaramats cease their attacks and hand over their newborn children as hostages to ensure peace. His outrageous demands infuriated everyone present. Kavaz, driven by selfish gain, had betrayed his own people and become a pawn of the Khwarezmians. The negotiations collapsed, and Kavaz stormed out with threats, igniting a war among the steppe tribes. The Savarat leader realized that uniting all the steppe tribes was the only way to resist him. However, not all tribes were willing to get involved in the conflict. Many had trade ties with the Khwarezmians and were reluctant to make enemies. The future of the steppe alliance hung in the balance. That evening, the leader of the Dahai tribe remained in the Savarat leader's tent. The Savarat leader revealed Tomyris' true identity to him. The Dahai leader was shocked, but the Savarat leader insisted it was fate. He told him that Tomyris was destined to lead the Masajte. They believed that her return, and her union with Argan, would unite all the free tribes of the steppe. Late that night, Tomyris was told that the attack on Kavaz would begin at dawn. The moment for revenge was finally at hand. Standing before the tribal leaders, Tomyris displayed her innate regal presence. She cut straight to the heart of the matter. This alliance was not just for her vengeance, but for the shared future of all the tribes. But she also made it clear that she would not make enemies of her own people, and that punishment would be limited to those who killed her father. As dawn broke, the army assembled. Tomyris rode at the front like a Valkyrie descended from the heavens. She charged alone toward the rebel ranks, declaring her identity in a thunderous voice. She denounced the traitors, revealing their desire to lead the free steppe tribes into enslavement by the Khwarezmians. She promised the soldiers that she did not want to stain the blood of her compatriots and would only kill the main culprit. Before she could finish, a rebel officer roared forward, only to be cut down by Tomyris' blade. A man in the enemy ranks screamed for vengeance for his father's death and lunged at her. But the Masajte warriors quickly realized Tomyris was their true leader. The soldiers surrendered to Tomyris and took the traitor into custody. One of her father's former men knelt before her, admitting that every Masajte bore responsibility for Spargap's death. Without a single unnecessary death, Tomyris reclaimed the loyalty of the army and led her reunited forces back to their homeland in triumph. Upon her return, she executed the traitors and declared her reign to all. She banished the families of the traitors without mercy, her actions swift and decisive. In a solemn ceremony, Tomyris accepted the scepter of power, officially becoming the queen of the Masajte. But she knew the time for celebration had not yet come. A brutal battle with the Khwarezmians still loomed ahead. After the ritual, her first act was to pay homage to her father's spirit. On the desolate plains where he was buried, she touched the earth, as if speaking to him. She told him she had reclaimed everything. The queen's life is not just about war. In the tent, she also chats with her sisters about family matters. Argan came to her side and spoke of Savarat customs. He asked if she was ready to choose a husband.
Աղար, մանայեմ տեկենտո, սոխանգու կարկարդան.
However, the Khwarezmians' army is approaching, and the dark clouds of war are hanging over the grassland. At the pre-battle council, Tomiris demonstrated her brilliant military mind. The enemy was well equipped, with chariots and heavy armor, but she saw their weakness. Chariots were an easy target for good cavalry, their iron hulls making their riders heavy and slow. So, she devised a flawless tactic to lure the enemy deep into her trap. She planned to harass them with a barrage of arrows, then feign defeat and retreat. Once the enemy's pursuit scattered their formation, the hidden cavalry on both flanks would strike with full force, annihilating them in one swift move. Before the battle, the tribes held a grand sacrificial ceremony, praying for the gods' protection. With the queen's command, the steppe alliance surged toward the battlefield. The battle began, and everything unfolded just as Tomyris had predicted. The nimble steppe cavalry disrupted the enemy's formation with dense volleys of arrows. Then, they pretended to retreat, and the cumbersome Khwarezmian army fell for the ruse, chasing recklessly. At the moment the enemy was fully encircled, Tomyris led the main force in a devastating flank attack. The battlefield was a whirlwind of blades and blood, with the steppe warriors fighting 10 to 1, unstoppable in their fury. Amid the chaos, Argan fought his way to Tomiris' side. His eyes were filled with admiration and devotion for her. The victory in battle was followed by a grand wedding. In the presence of the entire tribe, Tomiris and Argan were united as husband and wife. Argan swore that his honor and blood would forever belong to the queen and her people. They shared a bowl of wine, symbolizing the union of two powerful tribes and the unity and peace of the steppe. Soon after their marriage, Tomiris gave birth to a son, whom she named Spargap in memory of her father. The peaceful days didn't last long. A group of Bactrians arrived, fleeing the rule of Cyrus, the king of Persia. The queen, kind-hearted, took them in. One night, Tomiris dreamed of the demon bear again. Not long after, Cyrus's envoy arrived on the steppe. He brought gold, silver, and jewels, proposing to establish trade relations and mutual prosperity with the steppe tribes. Argan was dazzled by the wealth of the Persian Empire and the envoy's sweet words, seeing this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But Tomyris remained clear-headed and vigilant. Stubbornly, Argon ignored her warnings and decided to take their young son to Babylon to meet Cyrus in person. He wanted his future heir to witness the grandeur of a mighty empire with his own eyes. At their parting, Tomyris was heavy with foreboding. She repeatedly urged her husband and son to be cautious. She secretly instructed Tomyris to follow the group from a distance, just in case. It was the first time they had been separated for so long, and an ominous feeling spread within her. Argon and his party traveled far and finally reached the legendary prosperous city of Babylon. In the Golden Palace, they met the all-powerful Emperor Cyrus. Cyrus boasted of conquering half the world and expressed his hope that the steppe tribes would become his allies, continuing to conquer the world together. The subtext was clear. He wanted Argon to submit to him. Though Argon yearned for Persia's wealth, the unyielding blood of the steppe flowed in his veins. He refused Cyrus's offer to his face, declaring that the people of the steppe would never surrender without a fight. His defiance enraged Cyrus and gave the scheming courtier Gubar the opportunity he needed. Gubar whispered a poisonous plan to Cyrus, eliminate the stubborn Argon, and negotiate instead with his wife Tomiris. A woman grieving the loss of her husband, he argued, would be easier to break. That night, Gubar hosted a farewell banquet for Argon and his party under the guise of hospitality. Just as everyone let their guard down, murderous intent erupted. The ambushed enemies swarmed forward, and a bloody massacre began. Argon, his son, and all their companions were slaughtered by Persian blades. Thousands of miles away, Tomyris jolted awake from a nightmare. She sensed that her husband and son were in grave danger. Tomyris, the lone surviving guard, escaped through swamps and deserts, bringing the terrible news back to the steppe. When Tomyris heard, she was struck as if by lightning. She rushed into her tent, clutching the harness Argon had left behind, and wept in despair. Soon after, Gubar arrived with the bodies of Argon and her son, wrapped in cloth. He feigned sympathy, lying that they had been killed by a savage tribe, and that Cyrus had already avenged them. Tomyris suppressed her grief and ordered a funeral for her husband and son. At the grand ceremony, according to steppe tradition, the deceased were to be buried with their belongings and loved ones. But Tomyris stopped the practice of live burials. She told her people they needed warriors to fight and reproduce. After the funeral, Gubar finally revealed his true intentions.
Saka bu shahin shah mikonad ham daste u mishavad dar shtibe tu pishnihat mikone hamsare u beshavit.
Tomyris was furious. Cyrus had killed her husband and son, and now he wanted to marry her. Tomyris concealed her fury and promised to give her answer before her people. With everyone watching, Tomyris revealed Cyrus's conspiracy and hypocritical proposal to the people. Then she gave her reply. She pulled out a knife and stabbed Gubar, who was beside her, to death. She declared war on the Persia Empire in the most direct way. The act stunned everyone, some in fear, others in awe, but her defiance ignited the warriors' spirits. Cyrus, enraged, abandoned his plans to conquer Egypt and marched his vast army toward the steppe. Tomyris knew that only by uniting all the tribes could they stand a chance. Under her call, the steppe tribes rallied. Day and night, they forged weapons and prepared for battle. Tomyris developed a new tactic. She would use guerrilla warfare to harass the enemy, wearing down their morale, then concentrate her elite forces to strike at Cyrus's central command in the final battle. The war began. Like ghosts in the night, the steppe cavalry raided the Persian camps, leaving the enemy exhausted and demoralized. The day of the decisive battle finally arrived, and the two armies confronted each other on the vast grassland. An epic battle is about to break out. Tomiris rode before her warriors, delivering her final speech. The soldiers roared her name, swearing to fight to the death. With a single gesture, she unleashed a tide of cavalry upon the enemy. The battle was brutal, with heavy losses on both sides. Tomyris led the charge, cutting through the enemy lines toward Cyrus's command. Cyrus saw through her intentions and sent out his most elite guards to intercept her. Cyrus, arrogant to the end, remained seated in his tent, never imagining he could lose. Then, a bloodied steppe warrior broke through the defenses and stood before him. The mighty emperor of Persia, conqueror of half the world, was slain by an unnamed soldier. With Cyrus dead, the Persian army collapsed, fleeing in disarray. A warrior presented his severed head to the queen. Tomyris looked at the head of her enemy and fulfilled her promise.
Sana kangar sufsa. Kan kana. Yemte ich. Ang topun.
The steppe erupted in victory, but the queen's face bore only endless sorrow. History forgets many, but the story of Queen Tomyris will be told forever.